late. Simon's been in the makeup room. He's just coming out of the green room, and we're ready to start. How you doing, Simon?
Yeah, I'm right, mate. Yeah.
Looking forward to introducing the beat a bit later on.
Yeah. First time I met him since about 1979. So.
Yeah, good bunch of lads. Right, tell me a bit about the Skinhead reunion.
Well, we started it in 2011 purely because a bunch of my old mates died, and I just thought it'd be good to get everyone together again instead of a load of bloody funerals, basically.
Yeah, that's the trouble, Simon. When you get to our age, that's the only time you see people, weddings and funerals.
Yeah, and the older you get, you see even less weddings, isn't it? I suppose it's sons and daughters' weddings and stuff. But yeah, I just kept going to these funerals back in High Wycombe, and all my old skinhead mates, that's the only time I ever saw them. I thought, fuck it, let's get them together. And, you know.
So you've known the Wycombe Skins for quite a while then?
Oh God, yeah, since ever. Yeah, I mean, I became a skinhead in '78, and you know, some of them were skinheads already then. Most of them sort of got through two-tone and then into the punk era and all that. We were all punks basically in '76 in Wycombe, and yeah, we had a really big scene down there, really big scene.
So how about you quickly tell us how the Skinhead reunion started, you know, right from the start?
Well, like I say, it's a horrible story really. My mate Craig, I'd gone back up to High Wycombe where I grew up, and my sons had a gig there. They were kids at the time, had a little gig, and I dropped, as I'm parking up behind the venue, there was a girl screaming in the street, jumped out the car and asked her what was wrong. Behind her was a house on fire. So I ran over to this house and pulled these people out, and it sounds a bit more dramatic than what it was. It was basically a cooker on fire and a load of smoke. So I pulled them all out. As I'm doing it, somebody came up behind me and said, I recognise that voice, and it was one of my old skinhead mates, a guy called Craig. And he told me that this house was a halfway house for junkies, and that they were all zonged out on heroin in this house. And then he went, oh, and I've got to tell you that I was also a junkie, you know, and it was like a halfway house thing. And I said, look, Craig, don't worry about that. You know, come down to Brighton, and you know, when I get back from, I was going off to South America the next day. I said, come down to Brighton, and you know, come and hang out with me and come and see my brother. My brother was counselling soldiers at the time, coming back from Iraq, and anyway, a week later I'm in South America, and he dropped dead of a he died, you know, died overnight. I'm not sure if it was drugs or drink, but yeah, it killed him. And I thought then, you know, I've got to get everybody together, because I'd let him down badly. You know, I hadn't made the call to my brother. I'd gone on holiday, and I thought he'd be around because I hadn't seen him for 10 years, and I thought, you know, he'd be fine for the next few weeks. But no, it was too late, and he was a really like my younger brother. So that's what it started for. And I put it on the internet. I said, right, anyone who's an old skinhead, come down to Brighton, and we'll have a party. And that's how it started 10 years ago, you know.
And it's still going strong today?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that first year was basically just maybe 150 people, mainly London skinheads. A few came from Northern Ireland, you know, a few dotted around. But it was just basically some of the old London lot, you know, from some Facebook group. And then the second year, Roy Ellis got in touch and wanted to play. So I said to everybody then, oh, you know, let's all put a tenner in and let's pay for Roy Ellis to come over and play, because he lived in Switzerland. And that's really how it began as a proper event, and like a whole bunch of DJs got in touch, a load of bands got in touch, wanted to play. So I had to charge tickets and then get like public liability insurance and all that type of stuff, crew, backline, all the rest of it all cost money. So it became a proper event rather than just a drink up on a Saturday afternoon, you know. And it's just gone from strength to strength now on 4 days. You know, we're down there for 4 days really now.
And you know, I've been involved for the last 3 years. Really nice of you to get me and Reggae Rita to DJ down there. And it's, from what I can see, and from what everyone can see really, it's got a truly international flavour.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you know, luckily, I mean, it's not an egotistical thing, but my mate took photographs of me like growing up, my mate Gavin Watson, and those pictures became published worldwide in all sorts of skinhead magazines, but also in mainstream media. So I personally am a very well-known face throughout the skinhead world because of these pictures. And the thing was, I was never in a band or anything back in the day, but I used to do a lot of television acting, so, you know, in the UK, quite a lot of people knew me from that, and as years have gone by, I've just become this bit of a well-known sort of character within the skinhead world, I suppose, a bit of an ambassador in a way, because the media, every time they want to do some sort of expose or story or documentary on skinheads, they get in touch with me and ask my opinion. So I was in World of Skinheads what was it, the Don Letts one, History of Skinheads, the other last year or whatever it was, and then I did one with George Marshall in 1994, which was called World of Skinheads, and then there was one called Skinhead Attitude, which was done by a Swiss film company, and that's still broadcast a lot in Germany and across Europe. So because of that, I've become a little bit of a known character, as a genuine skinhead throughout this whole decades. So I think that's helped me in a way. And the thing is, I've travelled around quite a lot in my life because I like travelling for one, and also in my job. I mean, I work as a tour manager, so I'm here, there, and everywhere. And the skinhead subculture's never left me. You know, although I've had kids and I've been around, done lots of other things. I always find the skinheads in the local towns and countries and all that, and I always say come to Brighton. So if I find a band, like a few years ago I was in Japan, met some Japanese and threw a girl in Brighton, funnily enough lived in Brighton, I linked the two up and she got, was it 69 Yobsters who came from Japan last year. You know, we have a lot of Europeans, we have a lot of German bands because the German scene is very big in the world. I would say the German scene is probably the biggest. It's very oi related, it's more punk, they're not really that interested in the whole ska reggae thing. Although it is picking up since we started doing the reunion. I remember one guy got in touch with me, he said, oh, you can't mix oi and ska together. And I said, well mate, I was a skinhead from 78, right, from Sham 69, right through two-tone, right through oi, from the early days of punk in 76, you know, right the way through. I ended up working with Madness and the Nutty Boys and, you know, all the like Hot Knives and all them type of bands at the end of the 80s, you know, and I now manage Simmerip. I managed Xray Specs, you know, I've done all sorts of stuff. So me as a genuine skinhead loves all sorts of music. So I thought, well, if I love it, so does everybody else. And I won't, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Simon.
Yeah.
We've got to get a record in. We're running out of time.
Yeah.
And talking of Xray Specs, here we go. I think we might have fucked up slightly with the mic, because I'm doing two mics.
Oh, God.
So we might not have got it all.
Oh, right, okay. Oh. Is this one picking up? You got
yeah,
it on
yeah. Oh yeah, this is all now.
You got it on a mixer, yeah?
Yeah. So as soon as this tune finishes, put Simon's mic back on. Mine's live because it's off of a different feed, and then
we can ask about Xray Specs.
Yeah. What's the next record? Barbed. So it's Xray Specs. Talk about Xray Specs and then barbed. So as soon as that starts going slow, quiet, put the mic back on. Yeah.
You can mute it, fade it out halfway through if you like, and if we want to talk more or do you want to play more music, it's up to you really. Because we're like on time.
Over time.
13:43.
Right. Pull that down slowly, put the mic back on. Yeah, that was Xray Specs there, for which you was manager.
Yeah, I mean, I met Polly Styrene back in 2007. I did a festival called Concrete Jungle, which was basically a punk festival, and I put about 60 bands on down in a place called Canberra Sands at a Pontins holiday camp. And you know, Polly came as a guest of a guy called John Robb, who had a band called Goldblade, I think they were called. And I met Polly there, and I'd lost a whole load of money. It was the early days of the internet, and although it was a good way of promoting, I was totally unaware of all the internet warrior thing, you know, and it got completely destroyed by these extreme left wingers. And they, because I booked like 60 bands, and it was everyone from Neville Staple to GBH, Discharge, Cockney Rejects, you name them, they were all playing. But there was one oi band that I booked. I didn't know anything about what had gone on in the last 20 odd years with politics, and this one band particularly had played with somebody who knew some bloke who had a cat's dog's brother, who, you know, whatever, and then it became a Nazi festival according to these extreme left wingers. And so out of that I lost an absolute fortune, lost about 20 grand. It wiped the festival out completely because all the punks decided they're not coming. All these internet people just destroyed it. So but out of it I met Polly Styrene, and she saw the state I was in, and so she said to me, oh, you know, come and see me afterwards, you know, come and see my counsellor, because she was a Hare Krishna. And I became really, really close friends with her. And it was nothing to do with, you know, music really, the fact we'd met at a festival. But she said to me, you know, why don't you do an Xray Specs show? And she did it, offered me it purely just to help me out really, to get me mentally back on track and perhaps make some money. So I said, yeah, great. So we booked the Roundhouse in Camden. You know, people said to us, oh, you won't get more than 200 people at an Xray Specs show, but I thought, well, they're one of the only bands I personally would buy a ticket for, and I've worked in music for 20 odd years, you know, and I love that band. So I went, sorry, I've got nothing left to lose, I'm just going to do it. So we booked the Roundhouse, which is a sort of charity venue. I was about 3,000 people, and we sold it out. Between me and Polly, we sold it out, and yeah, it got me back going again. And you know, it was through her really that she saved my life in so many ways. And when she died in 2011, she got cancer and died very quickly. And I started the Skinhead reunion the same year because I lost her and a bunch of my Skinhead mates at the same time. And I was just so devastated. But rather than lay down and die, I thought, no, I'm going to do something. I'm going to get everyone together and celebrate life. And that's where it began. So she's a massive part of where I am now, hugely.
Yeah, it's always a sad loss, you know, someone that you've taken under your wing and helped you out.
Yeah.
Would you know, with the Skinhead reunion, would you say there's people trying to imitate it? You know, because you know what it's like when you put your head on the power pit, you're always going to get shot down a bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot. I mean, the thing is with that is, you know, I don't control the Skinhead world, I never have. You know, I do what I do because I love what I do. And from the early days in the 80s of putting on little, we used to call them alternative discos, and we used to do DJing, and we'd invite a couple of hundred skinheads and punks along, and we'd do that. From those early days, you know, of then jumping on, and I mean, I became a you know, logistics manager for Glastonbury. That's how far I got up in music. But you know, I started the Skinhead reunion through passion, and it was through I wanted to get the subculture back again. I've been working with the Mean Fiddler and seeing all these bands like Rancid and Green Day and all these type of bands playing in front of thousands of kids, and those kids didn't have a clue who the Cockney Rejects were, or who, you know, any of our bands were, you know. And I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it back. And when I started the reunion, I just didn't even think about all the politics involved in the Skinhead world. And I mean, initially it was your standard sort of right wing, left wing shit. But then it became this sort of various cliques between the different Skinhead groups as it started growing, you know, that you have these guys, oh, we do ska, we don't do that, and we do punk, and we don't do that, and we're this and we're that, and we don't like this one and that one. And I think, look, I get everyone together. I get bands from Sao Paulo, Japan, Germany, Norway, all across the UK. I look for new bands, I dig up old bands that have retired 20 years ago. I say, now get back together again, let's have a Skinhead reunion. And I bring it all together. And people have come down to the reunion, they've met each other, they've looked at the event and thought, oh, that's a good way of making some money. What we'll do is we'll go and do another one over there. Now that's fine if they do it a month or 2 months later or whatever, because like I say, I don't control it. If they want to do one in Durham or Scotland or wherever they want to do it, it's fine. But there's been a few that recently who have, it seems to me like what they want to do is destroy. They're not doing a Skinhead event because they want to build, they're doing it because they want to destroy another one. And I've never been like that. Any DJ that plays at any other event is welcome 100% to Brighton. I've always done it. I've cherry picked. I go around the world, I find bands, I find DJs, and what I tend to do with the DJs is if I find a DJ and he's got a little sound system and he's working in a little pub in some little town that no one's ever heard of, and you look at him, he's got all the right clothes on, he's got all the records, he really loves what he's doing, I'll say, come and play Brighton. You play Brighton, you're going to meet some of the top DJs in the scene worldwide. And from that, you can get yourself, you know, all over Europe, and you can have a really good time and get in front of a big audience. And it's worked. I mean, like Darren Bennett, he did the early DJ stuff at Brighton. And he got on with Madness. He's now the Madness official DJ. DJs all over the world. And Chrissy Boy's been a very good mate of mine since the early 80s. So it was definitely as a good, you know, the Skinhead reunion was definitely a big part of the reason he got that job. You know, like Olas, he did the Fridays for years. He now DJs, he's got his radio shows and does all this stuff. I've seen videos of him recently out in India and Thailand and all sorts, you know. And again, he built his name through the reunion. And I'm not saying that the reunion made these people. What I'm saying is it was a big part of them getting their exposure out there into the real world. You know, Darren was doing Worthing, you know, Olas, I'm not sure what he was doing. He used to do a thing out West Ham, I think. But, you know, you can use it. And I often see, you know, Luke, who, you know, comes down from France. You know, recently I was managing a young band and we went all over Europe. And it was because I know all these different promoters and DJs around the world that I can then go, right, I've done plenty of favours for you. Can I have one back? And so we get tours, and this is how the scene works. The subculture that we've been in for many, many years is passionate people that are linked with our love of music, style, culture, mentality, and it's a bonding thing. It's not a destructive thing. That's why I won't have, personally, I won't have, I'm a member of this mob, I'm a member of that mob, and you've got to be a member of this and buy a badge for that. You know, I'm not into that. I don't care if you come with long hair down to your waist. So long as you're into what we're into, and we've got a positive attitude, that is what the Skinhead Reunion's about.
Yeah, I remember last year we even had some Hell's Angels turned up, and you know everyone was looking, thinking, "Oh, what's going on?" But they were friendly. They enjoyed the music.
Again with the Angels, I mean, I knew the Windsor chapter as a kid, you know, because I lived in High Wycombe. The Windsor chapter was only like 10 miles from us, and they couldn't drink in many pubs, so they used to drink in our pubs. So as far back as the first day I ever drank, we drank with the Angels, and they were like older than us and a lot more serious, but they looked at us as sort of mascots, you know, and we always got on well. And some of my old mates became Angels, and even to this day are. You know, I went to the Angels, one of my mates' patch parties just recently, and loads of them are ex-skinheads. And the guys that you saw, they'd all come from Wolverhampton. They're the Wolverhampton chapter, so they'd come down. The Windsor lot come. A lot of them don't wear their colours because a lot of them are old skinheads. We all come from the same background, you know. We're just different subcultures. But the Angels and us, there's not really much difference between us, really, in lots of ways. Same sort of mentality.
So that's where the subcults.com came from, then, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always loved the subcults. I mean, all of them. My mum was an original mod. You know, my mum from the 1950s. She used to go down Ronnie Scott's as a kid. She was about 16 years old and worked in London. And Ronnie Scott's the early, you know, it's modern jazz and traditional jazz. And they were into modern jazz, so they became the original mods. And I used to love listening to my mum's stories of the jazz clubs and all that sort of stuff that she was into. And that really just inspired me to get into subculture. I always loved it. I always just loved this. I wanted to be a teddy boy, and then I wanted to be a mod and all that. But my time, when I was 11, 12, punk rock broke out, you know, 76. And we had the Extroverts in town, and we had Ron Watts, who was one of the big promoters, did the 100 Club. So me as a young teenager, what I saw was punks everywhere, so I loved that. And then for me, it was when Sham 69 made Kids Are United. I was at 78, I was about 12, 13, is when I just started secondary school. And to me, that was it. That was like Jesus was talking to me, and that is what I wanted to be, right there, bomb. So I shaved my head and became a skinhead, and that was it.
Yeah, talking of Sham 69, we've got a track by them.
Oh, hold on.
Should be Sham 69.
Alright, well, we'll have the least.
Yeah, don't worry about that. That is my cock up. The perils of live radio. Yeah, no, it's too late now.
I'll talk about this one.
Yeah.
This microphone's off in it one.
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as
One music.
when that's about halfway through.
Yeah, dub it out, and you can ask me why did you choose that tune?
Yeah, yeah. So when you've done that, if you talk, I need to go through weed.
Yeah.
When it's halfway through,
Yeah.
fade it down on that one and put the mic back on for Simon.
Okay.
I've got this P ring.
You can move that, it's not being used.
Yeah. I mean, what a knob.
Yeah, so the reason I chose that barbed wire was because in the early 80s, it was probably around about 83, we used to drink in a pub called the Halfway House in Wycombe, and the Black Rastas used to drink in a pub called the Red Cross Night, and they used to sell a bit of weed out of there, and the old Bill used to raid it all the time, and one day they decided they were going to close it down, so the Blacks had to find somewhere else to put their sound system, so they brought it to our pub. And with them, they brought all their vinyls, and they were playing the reggae. And most of it was dancehall, you know, like things like Yellow Man and Dillinger and that type of stuff. But they were also playing all the early ska. And I'd never really linked ska reggae music with skinhead music, because although I was a skinhead And reggae ska was on our estate because there was a lot of black people, mainly from St Vincent on my estate, Jamaicans and all sorts. So reggae was a big part of our estate, and we all loved it, but it wasn't really a skinhead music. You know, we were in a punk and sham and, you know, extroverts and stuff like that. But Barbed Wire, I really loved that track. And I remember going to a place called Danny Cool's Records in Soho. It's just up behind Carnaby Street, and we walked into this shop, and it was full of reggae. And I remember going in, and I asked them, "Have you got Barbed Wire?" And they gave me an album called Monkey Business, and on this album was the song Barbed Wire. And I remember looking at the picture on the cover. And it was a blurred photograph of, and on it was a skinhead bloke. It looked like a skinhead. It was all blurred with Doc Martens on. I thought, that's strange. Why is there a skinhead on a reggae album? And then I got talking to the people in the shop, and there was a whole load of Prince Buster and all this sort of stuff. And then the penny dropped. You know, like the two-tone we've been listening to, which, you know, was ska reggae. It sort of penny dropped as that's where it was a music that was part of our subculture as well as the blacks, you know. So yeah, that's when I really first got into the early Trojan and that's that music, you know, from that time, from that record. So it was from there, and then I'll trace back rather than go forward, you know.
All interesting stuff. You mentioned a bit earlier about, you know, how you run the reunion and getting guys from all over the world, bands. I've met Luke, top man. You even had Olaf Sorrow from out there in Germany, and the Easy Skanking crew. So it truly is a worldwide event, not just Bertie Smalls from Margate.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, like I say, people come from all over the world. You know, we've had Norwegian, Scandinavian, Swedish, German, Spanish. You know, we've had everything really. I mean, I'm constantly on the case. I mean, even Foxy, who lives over in Dublin, he's played, but he's from he's Czech Republic, isn't he?
Hungary.
Oh, Hungary, yeah, he's from Hungary. So you know, we have people from all over, and that the skinhead subculture, when it left the shores of England, which is quite mad really, because we were very insular. You know, we were like literally the skinheads in my estate were the only skinheads that there were in the world, according to us. But George Marshall in the early 90s, he used to do his magazine Skinhead Times, and that went out across the world, and the Americans picked up on it big, so did the Germans, and it went everywhere. So what I try to do is all those passionate people that are into it all across the world, and the scene is quite small, little sort of little circles all around the world, and I try to bring them all together and make one big circle, and that's what I'm all about. I hate all the politics, I hate all the left wing, right wing thing, but I like to try and bring everyone in of all your different things, because we've all got that common denominator, and that is we're all skinheads and we all love our subculture above anything else.
Right, we're almost out of time, so just give people a little bit of info about the Skinhead reunion and why they should come down there. Well,
you know, we've been doing it for 10 years. We normally do it the first weekend of June, rock solid first weekend of June, but this year, obviously, because of the COVID, we've had to postpone to September. And so we're on the 11th to the 13th. Now it's pretty much sold out because obviously we're limited for space. But, you know, if you're into the subculture, come, because you'll love it. And don't listen to all the crap you know, on the internet, you've got all these little idiots who are always sort of bitching about the event and about the people that run it and all the rest of it. But don't listen to that. Come, meet people of like-minded and enjoy yourself. So you're always welcome.
Cheers for that, Simon. Really, really enjoyed it. I'm going to hand you over to DJ Embers. Right, we'll go and get something to eat.